President Biden and Israel's Prime Minister speak for the first time in more than a month. White House correspondent Greg Cluxton reports.
Monday's phone call between the president and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu marked their first interaction in several weeks. The two leaders have differing views on the food crisis in Gaza and the conduct of the war with Hamas, straining the relationship between allies. Adding to the tension, Senate Majority Leader Schumer's call last week for new Israeli elections. Republicans were outraged, as were Israeli officials, while President Biden called it a good speech. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Also at townhall.com, it was a chaotic night in Jacksonville Beach Sunday with multiple shooting incidents. Jennifer King has more.
Police are investigating a series of 3 shooting incidents in Jacksonville Beach Sunday night that left a 21-year-old man dead and 3 other people in serious condition.
3 separate unrelated shootings.
Jacksonville Beach Police Chief Gene Paul Smith.
1 person lost their life last night.
Smith says 2 people apparently shot each other and 1 person was an innocent tourist from out of town. Police locked down nearby bars and evacuated the downtown and beachfront area. Lynch's Irish pub patron Casey Jones told WJXT he was impressed by the way the business took care of their customers.
They say, everybody get in. They got everybody in and they locked the doors.
Audio courtesy WJXT. I'm Jennifer King.
In health news, the EPA has announced a comprehensive ban on asbestos, a deadly carcinogen, still used in some chlorine bleach, brake pads, and other products. Asbestos exposure linked to about 40,000 U.S. deaths each year. The new rule would ban quercetal asbestos, the only ongoing use of asbestos in the U.S. On Wall Street, the Dow had 140 points, the NASDAQ adding 170. More at townhall.com.
Our government has engorged itself on borrowed money. Now we are over $30 trillion in debt. If this bubble finally implodes, many Americans will be left penniless and heartbroken. For example, what happens if state and federal pension funds go broke, or if 401ks and IRAs get cut in half due to hyperinflation? Hi, I'm Lance Wallnow, news analyst, best-selling author, and evangelical leader to millions of people just like you. People who understand something big is coming. Now's the time to prepare with a physical gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Precious metals are among the most proven hedges you can make, and they're even better inside a tax advantage account. To get a free info kit on gold IRAs, text the word FAITH, F-A-I-T-H, to 989898. Birch Gold Group is the only gold company I trust. Get their free info kit and see why a gold IRA can help you. There are no strings attached, so just text FAITH to the number 989898 right now, and I pray.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Spring officially begins tomorrow, but today, it's still wintertime. A hard freeze early and then a cold day for mid-March. Breezy but dry. Your afternoon high only 45 degrees with a brisk northwest wind. Tonight, down to a frosty 32 in St. Louis, but another hard freeze likely in many suburbs and rural areas. And then, wow, what a turnaround for Tuesday afternoon as we bounce back to near 70 degrees. That's your First Alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
This hour of Colombo and Katie brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com. Tony Colombo.
Libertarianism is all about individual liberty.
Katie Fitzpatrick.
Oh, good for you.
Colombo and Katie on News Talk STL.
Time to rise has been engaged. We're better, best to rearrange. I'm talking here to me alone. I listen to the finest work song. Your finest hour. Your finest hour.
Hello and welcome to Monday afternoon on Colombo and Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Cold one out there. The 30s this afternoon. It's 80, it's 30, it's 60. It doesn't matter.
It's all of it.
Every day is a different day.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get what you get. That's how it works. So have fun with it. We got a busy week for you this week. We got a lot to talk about today. We'll be joined by Rob Carter in just about an hour at 3 o'clock and by Virginia Cruda from the Daily Wire in about 40 minutes, about 2:45 this afternoon. So looking forward to having those conversations. Anything interesting over the weekend that we need to touch on before we dive into the stories today? You got what?
With me?
Yeah, with anything. You look like you had something on your mind.
Personally?
Yeah. Do you have? I mean, you look like you had something to say.
I don't have.
Okay.
There's nothing going on up here. Nothing happening between the ears.
It looked like when I said something about the weekend, you were like, "Oh,
let me tell you.
I'll tell you about the weekend."
No, I had a good
Have you
one.
guys taken down your Christmas lights yet?
I did. Not me. David did.
Right.
David did. He did that the first nice day in January.
Oh, I thought you were the one. Oh, it's Gabe.
Gabe had all of his
I'm
shenanigans
sorry.
up.
I'm sorry. I was
Conflating.
I was conflating Gabe's laziness onto you.
But you know what? The
What-
reason why you
tell me
did that
what.
is because a couple of years ago, remember, I did have my Christmas tree up until April.
Yeah, that's what. I remember that. That was last year, wasn't it?
No,
Last
that
year
was COVID. COVID, I had my Christmas tree up. I needed the extra cheer. So in 2021, I had my Christmas tree up until April.
I knew you had some Christmas laziness, but you're right. I was actually thinking of Gabe this time. So
he
that's
finally
good.
took it all down.
He did?
Yep. He
That's
said
good
it. He
enough.
told Mike.
Well, there's been a couple of 80-degree days, so the weather
I can't be an excuse.
the
can it?
weather excuse wasn't going to hold up anymore. I don't know where to start today because there's so much ridiculousness out there. There's a ridiculous interview from former Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. We'll probably get into that as we go through the day. There's a new poll calling out Joe Biden's lies, which is pretty
Ooh.
good. Yeah, that's pretty good. We'll definitely get into that. There's a brand new report out from the Media Research Center, which shows just how much Google has interfered with elections.
That is an incredible
Specifically
report.
since 2008.
Ooh.
That's when it started to get real. So, and there's specifics in this. It's not just like accusations or, guessing at it. There's actually specific details in here about Google's actions during those election years, which is a good lesson to learn right now since we're in the middle of an election year. So, all super interesting stuff. We'll get into those as we go along. We'll start with, this is like a crapshoot because literally all of these stories are worth the
Time.
headline, like the starting the show with. But I'm fresh off of this, so that's what's in my head. I just watched the majority of a 90-minute, hour and a half long Senate committee hearing. The one with Bernie Sanders presiding, making his case for a 32-hour work week. The actual hearing. So it's Bernie making his point. Then there's the Republican senators that are there that are combating his point. There's witnesses. There was union bosses. There were various people representing work groups across the country, all giving their testimony on why a 32-hour work week would be good or bad. And it is
Interesting.
It is a
or
peek
exhausting?
behind the curtain
Okay.
on just how ridiculous this country is ran. This is the main stuff, right? This is the big important stuff that gets things done. Senate committee hearings with witnesses and testimony and people making their cases on why this is important for people and why it's not important for people, and just some of the dumb stuff that gets said is amazing.
Eesh.
I'll give you the cliff notes here. So Bernie, I was going to play some sound, but there's so much. There's so much, and it's all so repetitive, and it's the same. It's just Bernie Sanders droning on and on about technology.
Oh, goodness.
and how Americans, people need, how I don't know. He makes the point that like Americans work hard, but like he makes it almost like in one breath it's like Americans are hard workers, like it's a good thing, and then Americans work too hard, like it's a bad thing. Like it doesn't make any sense.
On different things.
So he starts this hearing by going through all of this. He's like, this has been well discussed in the Senate, and we've come to the conclusion that this is the best way to do it. So it's like, okay, well then. Why are we doing? What are we talking about then, Bernie? And he just makes the case that since it was decided so long ago, it has to be wrong. Like, there's no other point besides that. He's like, he's like, in 1898, the United States Senate discussed it, and in 1921, and it hasn't been discussed since 1940. In 1940, President Roosevelt passed the blah, 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 and it hasn't changed since then. And his point is, since it was settled in 1940, it has to be wrong. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Maybe we just got it right in 1940. And he's like, those are the words. The quote he says is, it hasn't been brought up since 1940, which is ridiculous, which is why it's long overdue that we address it. Is it?
And is that
maybe
the
it's
only reason we're going off of this?
Yeah. When was it settled that women could vote? Do we need to revisit that because it's been so long since we talked about it? Or did we just get it right?
Did we just get it right?
Like, what does that mean?
And I would think that if you are spearheading this bill and this idea, you would come massively prepared to counteract people that might be bringing up, what do small businesses do? How would big manufacturers operate? How do we have the same number of productivity? I mean, these are simple questions that an average person like me would ask Bernie Sanders. And you are the person that saw the hour and a half hearing about it.
The whole hearing.
And were people asking him questions? I mean, obviously the Republicans had a rebuttal. Were they like, hey, bro, what's the plan on keeping wages the same if you're limiting hours?
This is a real quote. To answer your question, this is what I'm talking about when I say how ridiculous it is. One of the main senators giving the other side, the Republican side, the
debate,
the other side of the debate, was Senator Bill Cassidy, I think from Louisiana. He's a Republican. And he gives out all these stats about how businesses will close and those services will go overseas. There's already a labor shortage, so if a business is barely getting their work done with their employees now, if the employees can only work 32 hours and not 40 hours, then those businesses are going to have to hire more people in a time where there's such a labor shortage, which is going to put like all of these really good arguments against it. And Bernie Sanders said the words, I don't want to hear statistics.
What do you want to hear then?
Well, that's a really, if you can get away with that in a debate.
I don't want to hear facts.
I don't want to hear facts.
I'm done with the facts.
Because they make me look bad? If you can get away with that, good for you. He also said, he said the words.
That's insane.
He said he was getting ready to turn it over because he was like, he had just done his rebuttal.
That's insane.
So, like, he makes his case, the rebuttal happens, he makes his rebuttal to the rebuttal, and then he's about to send it back to the other side, and he goes, and I don't want to hear any more statistics. That's literally what he said. Like,
No
hey,
more.
well, that's a real easy way to argue.
Percentages, polls out the window.
He also said, one of the points that Senator Cassidy made, was letting the market decide. Like, he was saying, we don't need a mandate for a 32-hour week. If a business wants to make a 32-hour work week for their employees, they can. They don't need us to tell them that they can or can't. And he even brought up the guy who's against the idea of making it a mandate, brought up that we're going to hear from some businesses that have done that and it works for them, which is great.
Right.
So he's making Bernie's point that, like, yeah, this might work for some businesses, and that's great if they do, but it shouldn't be a mandate. He said we should let the market decide, and Bernie Sanders literally said the words, I don't want to let the market decide. That's what he said. Because he said when the market decides, the rich get richer and people get taken advantage of. So he said, so I'm done with, he literally said, I'm done with letting the market decide. Well, then you're done with America. Yeah. You're done with, like, what we base this country on. Because I'm not saying we don't have a CEO problem. It's ridiculous that CEOs make 200% more than everybody. That's a problem. Just like it's a problem how much college costs in this country.
Totally bloat.
But we still have a system in place. There's still a system here that doesn't exist in other places that you can win. You can take yourself from nothing and turn yourself into something because we don't have communism. We don't have the federal government making every decision, every mandate, and taking every penny and thought and everything else that's created by American workers and taking it for themselves and regulating it themselves. So it's not a perfect system. There's certainly bad actors within the system, but you can still, in this country, you still have a better chance than anywhere else of making something out of nothing. And he said the words, I'm done letting the market decide.
To hell with the market?
To hell letting, I don't want to hear any statistics.
Nope.
And I don't want to let the market decide
We
anymore.
know why he doesn't want to hear those statistics, because he literally
He is a
had none.
socialist. At least
Exactly.
He is a admitted socialist, so I'll give him that, because this is what all Democrats think. They just don't have the guts like Bernie does to say, I'm a socialist.
You have to... This is insane to say right after you just explained his thought process, but you got to give the guy credit. He's never changed. He has never changed his morals, his laurels. He has always been Bernie Sanders. But isn't it the most strange? Isn't it a testament to America that we can have someone like him operating in the Senate? We can have someone that is like, I actually don't really consider the will of the people, because that is what the market is.
Mm-hmm.
The market is what goods and services, what we invest our time and money into, that's what excels and succeeds. It's insane to me to hear from a senator in the United States, to hell with it, be damned. We don't actually need that. Once again, the government can dictate and decide what is best for you. That is the genesis of the cause for Democrats. And my God, Tony, are you right? At least he is saying it. At least we understand where Bernie Sanders stands.
Yeah.
And for
he's only a Democrat when he runs for president. He's immediately leaves. He's not in Bernie Sanders, I don't know how many people know this. Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. He's not in the Democrat Party. When he's sitting in the United States Senate, he has the letter I next to his name, not R or D, because he joins the Democratic Party when he runs for president, and then when he doesn't win, he leaves the Democratic Party immediately. He is not a Democrat. He is a socialist, and he says, I'm a socialist.
I can't.
At least he does that. At least he does that. But this is the president, this president, and this Democratic Party put this socialist in charge of things.
Yes.
He's the chairman of this committee that had this hearing. I mean, they put him in charge. They give him power, which is scary. You want to hear a minute of this?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Here, this is just like a random. This is just like the random beginning of this hearing, and where he's like going. Imagine listening to this like I did for an hour and a half.
I can't.
This is just him going through the history of how we got to the 40-hour work week.
Time, he said, quote, "We fully realize that the potential benefits of automation are great, if properly handled."
He's quoting the Senate in like
Only a fraction of
1932
what
here.
Technologists promise for the future is true. Within a very few years, automation can and should make possible a 4-day work week. The reduction of the work week to 35 or 30 hours in the coming decade can be an important shock absorber during the transition.
Again,
to
this is from,
widespread
he's
use
reading from like
of
80 years
automation.
ago.
It can both reduce the impact of sharp rises in output and increase the manpower requirements in industry and commerce. End of quote. And yet today, nearly 70 years later, despite an explosion, as we all know, in technology and a massive increase in worker productivity, nothing has changed. Think about that. Think of the huge transitions we have seen in the economy, but in terms of the work week, nothing has changed.
Maybe because it didn't need to change.
While we have not discussed
Why do
this
we have to
issue
have this
for a
hearing
long time
just
in
because
Congress,
we set the
this
work
is
week
not,
this way a long
needless
time
to
ago?
say, a new issue.
Yeah, let it go.
In 1886,
1886.
central planks of the trade union movement in America
There we go.
was to establish an 8-hour work day with a simple and straightforward demand, quote, 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what you will, end quote. That was back in 1886.
Okay.
What the hell does it have to do with anything today?
I'm tired of working 12-hour days.
This
for
man
6 to
is
7
just-
days a week.
He's
Reserving
1,000
the
years
time
old.
for rest, relaxation, or quality
This is
time
how people
with
should
their
be
family.
He's a
tortured.
1,000-year-old socialist.
And
And he's the chairman of a committee in the United States Senate.
Can he just swallow some of the spit that's absorbing into his mouth every time? Like, what is happening there? That's the only thing I could hear besides thinking that we need to send this guy to Gitmo and have this is the torture mechanism we've been looking for.
He also said, I
Bernie
think
Sanders.
it was just right after that, but we can't listen to that anymore. It just it's you get it. He also said, quote, U.S. workers work more than any other wealthy nation. Like that's a bad thing. Is that necessarily a bad thing? That U.S. workers work more than any other wealthy nation? I mean,
This is where I'm having trouble. He keeps saying we're productive, we're so productive. Do you think that's because people are going to work for 40 hours? You think because we implemented a 40-hour work week and we have all this I'm not denying that work-life balance is a hard thing to accomplish, especially when you start having children.
Of course it is.
I'm not denying it. But do you think all this productivity is happening because people are going to work for 5 days a week?
And don't you work hard so you can have a
break?
good work life, a good family life, so you can provide? I mean, that's
Yes.
the motivation to work hard.
What is the logic behind what is the reasoning behind this?
I remember when I was a kid, and anybody that's like Gen X, in their 40s, 50s will remember this. It was like American kids are now 15th in the world when it comes to math scores. We've fallen that far behind. It was like, oh, we're so, like, Americans don't work hard enough. American kids aren't learning enough. And it was a bad thing. Now Bernie Sanders says U.S. workers work more than any other wealthy, and that's the bad thing.
Sure.
Now, which is it? Were we lazy bastards that didn't work, or do we need to work more?
And think
Or
about
is it a bad thing because we do work more? It doesn't.
And think about this. If we stay home, this is part of the socialist agenda. If we stay home and we're not getting paid like we were, I mean, I know he thinks that we're going to get paid the same or not. Then we're going to have to sign up for government programs. Then we're going to have to be paid by the government to stay home.
Which is what he wants.
This is exactly
Which is what
the
he
plan.
wants. That's definitely what he wants. He wants government control, and he doesn't want statistics.
No,
he
don't.
made that very clear. I don't want your facts, because when you bring up the facts, things go south for my argument. And they go south quick. All right, as I mentioned, we're going to talk to Rob Carter at 3 o'clock. We're going to talk to Virginia Kruder from the Daily Wire at 2:45. And I'll let you know about this Media Research Center report that was just released that shows just how much Google has influenced recent elections. We'll tell you those details and more next on Colombo and Katie.
You're listening to Colombo and Katie.
Look, here's the deal.
Follow Katie Fitzpatrick on Twitter at KFitzTalks. St. Louis Louis's place to talk.
Freedom of speech is one of the anchors of our society.
News Talk STL.
If you are thinking about selling your home, there is one team to call, the number one home selling team in St. Louis, the Wallner Home Selling Team. Rodney and Jen Wallner are the best. The stats back that up. They're selling 15 times more homes per year than your typical home seller. They have so many qualified buyers right now that they guarantee to get you an offer. But for us, my wife and I, we went through the process. We moved into our new house last year, and, thanks to the Wallners and their hard work, and for us, that's really what it was that set them apart from the rest, was the hard work, the experience, the work ethic that they bring. They're a married couple. They bring that family perspective to the conversation, which was so important to Christine and I, especially since not only were we selling our old house, but we were buying our new house on the other end of things, and just could not have had better results anywhere than we found with working with Rodney and Jen, the Wallner Home Selling Team. Things have changed in the market. Interest rates, housing market's changed a little bit since we went through the process, but the bottom line is supply and demand has not changed. It is still very much a seller's market. There's a lot more people wanting to buy than there are wanting to sell. So right now, it is a seller's market that you can take advantage of. And wherever you're at in the St. Louis area, the Wallners are licensed in both Missouri and Illinois. So Rodney and Jen Wallner can help you anywhere you are in the St. Louis area. So if you're thinking about selling your home, you need to call the Wallners now. Call them at 314-810-SOLD, 314-810-SOLD, 314-810-SOLD for the Wallner Home Selling Team.
When you go shopping, you may not get the bargain you want, but at least you know and can compare prices. It should be that way with healthcare, but too often it's not. Need an operation on your knee? Want to know what it's going to cost? Good luck. For 3 years, hospitals have been required to provide patients with list prices and have negotiated charges for some 300 services. Only 36%, just over a third, are fully compliant. In Missouri, prices differ greatly depending on a patient's insurance. The cost of a pelvic CT scan, for example, can be 20 times more expensive in one hospital than another. Price transparency allows patients to compare providers, forces hospitals to compete on price, and helps insurers negotiate lower rates. State law should require all healthcare providers to publish prices in a user-friendly form. What we don't know is costing us. The price of healthcare shouldn't be a secret. Check out our 2024 blueprint, Moving Missouri Forward at ShowMeInstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
On the next,
Larry Connors, USA.
CNN's electoral map shows Trump winning without Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, or Arizona.
Larry Connors, USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
She said, I don't know if I've ever been good enough. I'm a little bit rusty and I think my head is caving in. And I don't know if I've ever been really loved by a hand that's touched me, and I feel like something's gone again.
Hello and welcome back to Colombo and Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Fun with Bernie. That was that first segment.
I'm telling you. Ancient. And despite how ancient he sounds, he still does not seem older than Joe Biden.
No.
That's
well,
the sad reality.
You know what? You're right. You're right. But I'll tell you what. That's a really good point. Watching that hearing with Bernie Sanders trying to make the case for the 32-hour work week, I couldn't help you just can't watch it without being constantly reminded of just how old of a man he is. But he was with it. Again, for all of Bernie's faults, and there are many.
Many.
He's not hiding it. He's a socialist. He's unapologetic about being a socialist. He wants the government to take over. He wants the government to run your life. He doesn't want rich people to be rich. And in his utopia, everybody makes $1 million to not work. And, then your lives will be great. Except there will be nothing in this except you'll have nothing because nobody has to work. So why would there be?
You won't own anything.
Why would there be doctors or policemen or
sounds like a real utopia to
yeah
me.
or manufacturing plants? You know, we wouldn't be making anything because we don't have to. Anyway, but he was coherent.
He was.
The president is not. The lights are on at Bernie's house. It's just that they're all kerosene gas lamps from 1922. But they're on. But the lights are on.
Oh, that was good.
But they're on. The lights are off at Joe's house.
He is the epitome of Ebenezer Scrooge.
He is.
He is the epitome of the nightgown and the nightcap and the kerosene lamp.
What's the date, boy? It's Christmas, huh?
That was so perfect. The lights are on.
They're on, though. It's kerosene gas lamps, but they're on.
And you know what? And at least we know where Joe Biden. At
Where
least
Bernie?
we know where Bernie is.
Yeah.
Because Joe Biden sways with the wind.
Yeah.
And I mean,
and the lights are off. Like you catch him in those moments when when they don't give him the shot of whatever, the shot of adrenaline,
juice,
and he's just sitting in the audience somewhere or waiting to speak or whatever, and he's standing there with his mouth open, staring off into nothing. Lights are off.
Hate to give Bernie kudos to that, but
yeah. Yeah. Google has interfered with major elections in the United States 41 times in the last 16 years, according to a new study from the Media Research Center. So, in general, before we get into this, how much do you buy into social media influence? Because here's why I ask. For me, I believe that all these companies try it, but and I could just be wrong about this. I would never read a Facebook post and change my mind about my vote on something. So to me, it's like, really, does it have that much influence on people? But I think that I'm in the minority. I think a lot of people do read Google Trends or see things on social media, and it influences their vote.
I do believe that social media has that kind of power. I do think maybe not with Gen X, maybe not even with millennials, but surely when you're in your 20s and you're looking at social media and you see your friends posting about it because they shared something that Obama said, or they're sharing a TikTok about things, I think that has a magnitude of power. That does persuade these are my feelings about these policies that I really don't know anything about, but I saw Karen retweet it or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think it does have that kind of power.
MRC, Media Research Center, MRC researchers have found 41 specific instances where Google interfered in elections over the last 16 years, and its impact has surged dramatically, making it even more harmful to democracy. In every case, Google harmed the candidates, regardless of party, who threatened its left-wing candidate of choice. This is all according to the MRC Free Speech America Vice President Dan Schneider, who put out this report, along with the editor of that group, Gabriela Pereso. This is in a summary of this report and their findings. It goes on to say, quote, "From the mouths of Google executives, the tech giant let slip what was never meant to be made public, that Google uses its great strength and resources and reach to advance its leftist values. Google's outsized influence on information technology, the body politic, and American elections became evident in 2008. Then, after failing to prevent the then candidate for President Donald Trump from being inaugurated following the 2016 election, Google since made clear to any disseminating observer that it has been and will continue to be interfering in America's elections. The group's research found that from 2008 through February 2024, last month, Google has utilized its power to help push to electoral victory the most liberal candidates, regardless of party, while targeting their opponents with censorship. Here are some of those specific examples. Favoring Barack Obama over John McCain in 2008, favoring Obama over Mitt Romney in 2012, refusing to correct a Google bomb that smeared then-leading GOP primary candidate for president Rick Santorum, using its algorithm to exclude autofill results that were potentially damaging to Hillary Clinton in 2016, not doing the same for then candidates Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders in 2016, and working with partners to help likely pro-Clinton Latino voters go to the polls that same year. Other examples cited by the MRC include disabling Tulsi Gabbard's ads just as she became the most searched candidate following the first Democratic primary debate in 2020, suppressing views critical of Biden in 2020, concealing most Republican campaign websites for the 12 competitive Senate races in 2022, and aiding Biden in 2024 by burying in its search results the campaign websites of every one of his significant opponents. So there you go. From the MRC, this report that was just released. I mean, disabling Tulsi Gabbard's ads just as she became the most searched candidate in 2020. Not taking out all the negative autofills. So you're going to tell me,
right,
the internet is negative, right? I mean, negativity is what is popular on the internet.
For sure.
People are going to search for negative stuff way more than they search for positive stuff. So when you go to when you start typing in Google and you're going to autofill, you're going to come up with negative. Like you start doing Donald Trump, it's going to start autofilling negative stuff. It wouldn't autofill negative things for Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
Or Joe Biden.
Or Joe Biden.
I mean, you're going to tell me, so what Google is telling me, and what Google is telling us when that happens is that, oh, it just autofills the most searched things. So you're going to tell me the most searched things about Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton were all positive?
Oh, yeah. Flowery, rosy. They did it. I mean,
I'm not buying it.
No, absolutely not. And I feel like, especially when we look at the situation with Tulsi Gabbard, and she's talked about this so much now ever since she's done with being in Congress and doing her own thing, which is incredible. And it goes back to your original question, what is the power of social media? What is the power of the internet right now? And this is why we have people like Eric Schmidt, now a senator, our former AG, and Andrew Bailey, who is our current AG, having this crazy battle with Joe Biden, Missouri versus Biden, that News Talk STL is a part of. We're a part of this because of the censorship that we got caught up with in YouTube.
Yep.
Things like this are...
You and I had to work on pieces of that, of submitting pieces of evidence to that case.
We did. We had to show them that YouTube actually gave us strikes for things called medical misinformation, which, by the way, people were off of YouTube again because they don't like what we have to say, even though the majority of what has been said by hosts it's all true. It has been proven and it is factual and it is true, but lo and behold, YouTube doesn't want it. We're going to see cases more and more like what we're seeing with Google, like what we're seeing with YouTube, and how that plays a role, not in Russia collusion, not in Russia interfering with our elections, which there probably is a part to play in that as well. Not that Donald Trump colluded with someone to make it happen. We're going to find that our very own Mark Zuckerberg and whoever owns YouTube right now and whoever is part of Google, we're going to find that American-made companies have a very, very big part to play in in what is that? Election interference. What a sad time.
Kind of makes my point last week about how TikTok's not necessarily the most evil of all the social medias.
Totally.
Hello.
It's so true. And, you know, last week when we had that discussion with Dr. Tobler, I did bring up people like experts in national security, and, you know, they're very cautious about how we proceed with TikTok. But we have testimony and hearings all the time with big tech. Jim Jordan being a huge proponent of it, happening right now with Mark Zuckerberg. And what role did Facebook have with suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story?
I'll give an unpopular opinion right now. I am just as afraid of the United States government having all my data than I am the Chinese government having all my data. I don't trust either one of them.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to pretend like one of them's worse than the other.
We just read a whole thing about Bernie Sanders saying to hell with the market.
I know that right now in my life that Joe Biden can do a whole lot more damage to me than Xi Jinping can.
So is the point of that to highlight all of this time since 2008 up until recently, how much we've been in the dark about what's going on with Google and that kind of suppression for our information, and then just recently, now we've had the door open?
Well, see, that kind of goes back to my very first question at the beginning. I don't take what I see on Facebook or Twitter at face value unless it's coming from a trusted source. I don't know. That's kind of was my question at the very beginning. I've always thought that the internet as a whole has an agenda. So I look at stories through those glasses that who's the one pushing this story? Who's the one writing this report? Because that's going to tell me if I think, it's going to let, my own personal opinion on whether it's biased or factual or not. So for me, it doesn't really influence my thinking. I'm looking for trusted news organizations or facts, sources to back up whatever statements are being put in a deal. Just because I see a headline doesn't make me go, oh, I didn't know that Donald Trump killed 25 people in his basement last year. I can't vote for him now. It doesn't, I would go, who's writing this report that says Donald Trump killed 25 people in his basement last year? I bet it's not true. So I don't know how much influence. I'm not a good gauge of, is it the majority of people that would read, that would be swayed by random agenda-fueled stories on social media, or do more people look at it more discerningly?
It really is going to be a testament to what happens with Maggie's generation or James' generation or Maeve's generation. If they're being taught in schools right now to be cautious and judicious about what's going on and what they read and filter out as truth on the internet, then there might be some hope to that. But if our kids are going into this blindly and saying, I saw a 60-second video on TikTok about Donald Trump killing 25 people, and I got it from my favorite TikToker who I trust, or from Taylor Swift, we might be in a world of hurt.
That's a good point. That's a great point. All right, we are going to, I don't know if you've heard the word bloodbath in the media today. I can't do it. Everybody's talking about bloodbath. This is so stupid. I can't do it. But I know it needs to be talked about.
It does.
So we're going to get help from Virginia Crudo because she's got a brand new article out about the media's wall-to-wall. This is the headline of Virginia's article in the Daily Wire. Media's wall-to-wall coverage of Trump bloodbath comment delivers zero context. And that's my point. It's so stupid because it's so taken out of context and it's such a made-up controversy. Virginia does a great job of explaining that. And so we're going to talk to her about that article and more. Virginia Crudo from the Daily Wire joins us next on Colombo and Katie.
You're listening to Colombo and Katie.
Look, I'm very young, energetic, and handsome. What the hell am I doing this for?
If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
Thanks for being my voice in all this.
This is News Talk STL.
There are people out there that feel the way that I feel and say what I say.
Welcome home.
That's why I'm Bouncing off the walls. Hey, everybody, welcome back. We are talking about A+ Plumbing and Drain. A+ Plumbing and Drain. Jeremiah Burpo, the owner of A+ Plumbing and Drain, has been our family plumber for years, since before there even was an A+ Plumbing and Drain, and he has built that company, family-owned business from the ground up, and grown it on word of mouth from just doing a great job. You know, from the very beginning, working side jobs, getting recommended for the great work that he's done, and has grown this company and it's continuing to grow and grow. You'll see the A+ Plumbing and Drain vans driving around your neighborhood. They are a local family-owned business that can take care of all your plumbing needs, and they specialize in new construction and home renovation. So if you have one of these big projects in mind, definitely A+ Plumbing and Drain is the team to call. We just had them out last week at our home to finally replace the toilets that we inherited with our house that were no good, and it was one of those jobs that I once again procrastinated and put off, and finally got it taken care of, and now we absolutely love the new toilets upstairs in our house that we should have gotten months ago. That was so easy, fast, and affordable getting done with A+ Plumbing and Drain. Again, they can handle whatever plumbing need or project you have, and they specialize in new construction and home renovation. So if you have any plumbing needs or plumbing projects, call A+ Plumbing and Drain now. Call them at 636-288-7126 or contact them and learn more through Facebook. A+ Plumbing and Drain on Facebook.
Rhino Shield is far superior to even the best traditional exterior house paint. Rhino Shield is 8 to 10 times thicker than paint and comes with a 25-year transferable warranty. Rhino Shield is the only ceramic coating company that has been chosen by Disney, This Old House, and 3 times on HGTV's Curb Appeal, where every episode is concentrated on unpainted brick, bonds and seals to stucco, wood, hardy, block, color lock, masonite, and more. No better product for those steel aluminum-sided homes that have become, chalky and tired looking. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. After 15 years, we've got a great reputation and a superior product. As long as it's affordable, why wouldn't you do it? Before you make the costly mistake of painting with traditional paint, you'd be best served to call Rhino Shield today. We are the experts and our evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Tell them, ladies.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
This hour of Colombo and Katie brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Into the unknown, into the unknown, into the unknown. I can hear you, but I won't. Some look for trouble, while others don't. There's 1,000 reasons.
Welcome back to Colombo and Katie on 101.9 News Talk STL. Joining us now on the line, as she does every Monday afternoon at this time, is our friend Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire. And Virginia, the word bloodbath is everywhere. And I'm
yes, it is.
It's everywhere, and I haven't talked about it yet. I was waiting to have this conversation with you because your new article, I think the headline says it all. This term, this word bloodbath, this attack on Donald Trump with it is everywhere, but it is completely out of context. The story delivers no context anywhere. It's just a bunch of fake outrage. Can you tell us about where this outrage, this phony outrage came from, and just how backwards it all is?
Okay, so let's just, if we put the context in, so that people hear that first. Well, actually, let's give it to you the way the media did. Okay, Donald Trump predicts bloodbath if he's not reelected. Donald Trump predicts bloodbath if Joe Biden wins in 2024. Now, these things are true, and the media is great at this, at taking something that is true but leaving out just enough information so that you take it in the wrong direction. So when you hear Donald Trump predicts bloodbath if Joe Biden loses, what do you think? Especially when you see it at NBC. You think, oh, wow, well, he's predicting riots if he loses, because, of course, all they've been conditioned to believe is that obviously Trump was the reason that January 6th happened. And so, of course, if he loses, that's going to happen again. Then you see the Biden-Harris campaign actually come out with a statement saying he wants another January 6th. Like that was their response to this comment. Now, here's the context. He is talking about the economic impact of what could happen if a Chinese automobile company builds factories in Mexico, which, by the way, it is doing, so that the cars are built in Mexico and then they ship them into the United States from Mexico, thus avoiding the tariffs on Chinese goods that were already put in place by the United States. So the goal here is for China to avoid a tariff. And what Trump is saying is if Biden is reelected, he will let this happen. And Trump said, no. And he pointed to, and he made the comment that he was specifically addressing Chinese President Xi. And he said, look, if you do this, we will put a 100% tariff on any vehicle that comes across that border. But if I'm not elected, it's just going to be a bloodbath.
And we all know that. We all know that. It was like when your dad, when you turned 16 and you take out the car, and your dad says, if you wreck this car, I'm going to kill you. The headline is not father threatens life of young man.
Right. Right?
No.
It's
father issues routine warning.
Exactly. Standard warning. Exactly. Nobody's life is on the line, just like Donald Trump isn't threatening to commit the St. Valentine's Day massacre with a bloodbath. It's just a term like so many other terms
what
are
I thought
used.
Was hilarious.
Yeah.
Now, and this is if you look up the term bloodbath in the dictionary, and this is what somebody did in order to make Trump look like, well, of course he knew what he was doing and he meant violence, right? Yeah. So he takes a screenshot of like the top 3 definitions of bloodbath, and he circles the top 2, which are like basically a massacre, like a literal massacre, or a literal bloodbath, right?
Right.
But he didn't crop off definition number 3, which is like complete and total financial ruin from one event.
Merriam-Webster, I just looked it up. Just because you were talking about it, I didn't even know to do this or think about it. I just looked it up. Merriam-Webster on their website, bloodbath. The definition A is a notably fierce, violent, or destructive contest or struggle. Definition B, a major economic disaster.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that's
wow.
But what was funny was this guy was trying to make Trump look bad. And so he posts a screenshot of the top 3 definitions, circles the top 2, and doesn't crop off the one that makes the complete opposite point. Like,
at least crop it out. At least edit that. At least edit the part out that defeats your point.
I mean, we all know you're being disingenuous anyway. You didn't have to prove it.
Right.
Virginia, when we talk about this wall-to-wall coverage that you wrote your article about, by the way, Daily Wire, go to see Virginia Kruita's articles there.
Oh, it's still going on today, by the way.
Oh,
they
I know.
had a presidential historian on Morning Joe this morning.
I saw that.
Oh my gosh.
So whenever
Trump was doing us a favor by showing us what fascism really looks like so that we can prevent it.
So whenever you see this wall-to-wall coverage, and we know the history of what the media does with some things that Trump says, do you think the American public, are we over it, or are they feeding into it?
That's a great question. Does it work?
Does
are
it
people
work?
buying this? That's a great question.
I think that the people who were predisposed to buy it already thought that anyway. And the issue, and I'll say this probably 1,000 times between now and November, the people who are going to decide this election are the ones in the middle. Because there are people on the right who are going to vote Republican no matter what, and there are people on the left who are going to vote Democrat no matter what. And the issue is going to be what happens to the people in the middle.
Yeah.
And that is, are they tired of being beat to hell by the media? Do they believe the Twitter files?
Who does sway? Virginia, we only have a couple minutes left, but this is a really interesting point because it also ties in the conversation we were having in the last segment about Google and their election interference. There's a new Media Research Center report out discussing that. But just real quick, who does that middle? Like you said, most people, their minds are made up. But the ones who aren't, who does sway them? Is it social media? Is it the internet in general? Is it network television?
I don't think
connects?
It's going to be that so much as and you'll notice the people who are in the middle tend to be more dialed into what's going on. These are the people who are paying attention to how the policies impact them in real time. This is why Donald Trump reached them in 2016, but Biden reached them in 2020. The issue that both candidates have is that somebody like RFK with the right running mate could reach them. And then you have, not to use an overused term, but you could have a potential bloodbath there.
Oh, God. Did you hear that? She just threatened violence.
And
Virginia just threatened violence, Katie. I'm going to kill her. I'm going to kill her for threatening violence.
The last thing in my article was a supercut from Tom S. Elliott. If you can find it on X if you don't see the article. It is a supercut of Democrats predicting a bloodbath, and they're using the term to reference anything from a completely dominated political, like election results where one candidate completely dominated another, to economic issues, they're using it to describe pretty much anything from primary victories to, market crashes. Jeez. And it's hilarious because it's like 3 minutes of Democrats saying bloodbath and no one giving a rip.
It's awesome. You need to check it out, and all of Virginia's articles at thedailywire.com. Virginia Kruta, as always, really appreciate your time, my friend. We will talk to you again soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Great stuff there from Virginia Kruta. Again, dailywire.com, and you can read her articles on our website at newstalkstl.com. All right, former Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is selling a new book, and he's got some interesting thoughts on the Constitution, and he was a Supreme Court Justice. I'll explain that when we talk to Rob Carter next.
You're not a voice. You're just a ring.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Speaking with Jim Talent, former U.S. Senator and chairman of the Reagan Institute's National Leadership Council.
We have 200 American kids die every day from fentanyl poisoning. A lot of these kids take a pill and they don't know that it has fentanyl, or they don't know it has as much fentanyl, and they accidentally overdose and die. And this is largely the result of the border being uncontrolled.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps, weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Does your life insurance plan include living benefits, hearing, diabetic supplies, teledoc service, discounts on urns, caskets, tombstones? Larry Connors here. I suggest you call Benjamin Schaefer at Senior Memorial. Call 314-866-8886 or visit memorialplans.com. Memorialplans.com. Senior Memorial Heritage Protection.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's INHSTL.com.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
The Nevada primary election was yesterday, and you may say, what? I didn't know that. Well, it's because nobody cared. Nobody cared. And so the Republican Party in Nevada said, we're not participating in the primary. We're going to do a caucus, which is coming up on Thursday. It's possible that Nikki Haley won't get a single delegate in that particular caucus.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
As well.
It just boggles the mind, though, how you get beat up shadowboxing. You know what I mean?
Mike Ferguson in the morning. Live and local weekday mornings at 5:30 on News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. The gang problem continues in Haiti, but in Cuba, the situation also seems increasingly unsettled. Demonstrators have been on the streets of Santiago amid blackouts and food shortages.
Tensions have soared in recent weeks on the communist-run island amid a worsening economic crisis, but demonstrations such as this remain rare. In a series of posts on social media, President Miguel Diaz-Canel acknowledged the protests and said he was listening, but accused the United States of seeking to foment unrest. The government continues to blame U.S. sanctions for the dire state of the economy, but critics say mismanagement is behind the current crisis, the worst in 3 decades. In a recent sign of the seriousness of the shortages, the government has for the first time been forced to ask the UN's World Food Programme for assistance.
BBC correspondent Tom Bailey. Meanwhile, in Haiti, gangs have attacked 2 upscale neighborhoods in Haiti's capital in a rampage that left at least a dozen people dead in surrounding areas. Gunmen looting homes in the communities of La Bulle and Thomason before sunrise on Monday. Also at townhall.com, former U.S. Congressman John Campbell of California says life is about to get harder for many Americans despite all the strong economic reports we keep hearing about.
So you have all that good news going on out there, but then there's a lot of bad news on the other side, which is this inflation, the fact that people's incomes are more and more being eaten up by inflation, and that unemployment is actually ticking up.
Campbell tells the Salem Radio Network the economy may be headed towards stagflation, in which inflation will remain high even as the overall economy and people's spending power grows weaker. The Dow finished up 64 points. The NASDAQ was ahead 130. More at townhall.com.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-355-4107 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-355-4107. That's 800-355-4107. What do you have to lose? Call 800-355-4107. Again.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Spring officially begins tomorrow, but today, it's still wintertime. A hard freeze early and then a cold day for mid-March. Breezy but dry. Your afternoon high only 45 degrees with a brisk northwest wind. Tonight, down to a frosty 32 in St. Louis, but another hard freeze likely in many suburbs and rural areas. And then, wow, what a turnaround for Tuesday afternoon as we bounce back to near 70 degrees. That's your First Alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Fox News commentary.
Uh-oh, Governor Gavin Newsom has postponed his State of the State address. Sounds like trouble in paradise. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
The Fed's new FedNow system is all about surveillance and control. Secure your assets today with something Washington cannot manipulate. Hi, Stephen K. Bannon, and I recommend diversifying your retirement into a physical gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. To learn more, get a free info kit by texting the word SHELTER to 989898.
Do this right now. Text SHELTER to the number 989898 and get a free info kit from Birch Gold. There's no obligation or purchase required.
Message and data rates may apply.
Today was supposed to be California Governor Gavin Newsom's State of the State address, but alas, it has mysteriously been postponed. His office said he is holding off until he has more clarity on some of the state's biggest issues like homelessness, mental health care, and that giant budget gap problem. Well, if Newsom is waiting for his state to turn around before he gives his address, he's going to be postponing until hell freezes over or pigs fly, whatever comes first. This all comes as Gavin is facing yet another recall attempt and a budget deficit of reportedly around $68 billion. Oh, and then there's that little nagging conspiracy theory of mine that Gavin Newsom is holding off and holding out on delivering his address because he is running for president in November and he doesn't want to tarnish his reputation and record by detailing just how badly his state is doing. Gavin is sweating this one, as he should be. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show Tommy Lahren is Fearless at Outkick.com.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
Let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country.
Imagine the future nightmare if Trump's back in office.
101.9 and 94.1.
Once we get all of this finished, I'm going to go after one person.
News Talk STL.
Oh, life is bigger. It's bigger than you are not me. The links that I will go to, the distance in your eyes. Oh no, I've said too much. I said it all.
Welcome back to Colombo and Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Great conversation with Virginia Cruda in that last segment about the dumb bloodbath controversy that I can't even...
Bloodbath!
As soon as I heard people talking about that this morning, I just knew, like, I am not going to have the patience for this. And I'm the person that sat through almost 90 minutes
That's
of a
true.
Bernie Sanders Senate hearing on the 32-hour work week. And I don't have the patience
No,
to deal with the dumb
stuff.
bloodbath backlash. Anyway, Virginia's got a great article about it on the Daily Wire, so go back and check out that conversation. Go back and read those articles. Of course, if you want to make sure you never miss anything that happens here on Colombo and Katie, all the great conversations we have, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast. We put out the show as a podcast right after we get off the air every day, and we put it on just about every podcast platform, so wherever you get podcasts, just make sure you're subscribed to Colombo and Katie. All right, joining us now on the line, as he does every Monday at this time, is Rob Carter, host of The Rob Carter Show, which you can hear every night, 8 to 10, right here on News Talk STL. Rob, how are you?
What's going on? How are you guys?
Oh, you know, just another day in Bizarro land. Yes. Here's another story. I mentioned a bunch of these at the beginning of the show. There was several things that just really just frustrated me going into this week with these news stories. One was the 32-hour work week and the hearing, the Bernie Sanders hearing, which was a joke. This new report from the Media Research Center that lays out the specific 41 times over the last 16 years that Google has interfered with elections in the United States. Super interesting. We talked about that a little bit earlier in the show today. And then also this interview with the New York Times that was just released. Former Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer has a book, so he's hawking his book. That's why he's out in the media. But his whole book is about the Constitution and the way it should be interpreted. In fact, the name of the book is Reading the Constitution: Why I Chose Pragmatism. I can't even say the word, not textualism. And he talks about why he's not a person who reads the context of the Constitution word for word. He puts it through his words, a filter, to apply today's sensibilities to what the founding fathers would have meant if they were alive in 2024. And he he insults, he attacks some of the other justices on the court for, his words again, fetishizing the Constitution like it's this all-important document. Well, you know what? It is.
Kind of.
So I can get into some specifics about this, but Rob, this is an argument that has been playing out over the last several decades. What is it? What does the Constitution mean? Is it appropriate to stick to the words of the founding fathers, or are we supposed to look at it and go, well, this was hundreds of years ago, and they couldn't have predicted these things, so we have to put our own sensibilities on their words and try to make it work?
Well, I have no faith in the Supreme Court of the United States. Stephen Breyer's a Clinton guy.
Yeah, big time.
And they're political figures more than they are judges and attorneys anymore. So it's very concerning when they get involved in something anymore, because they are supposed to protect our rights. But if you listen to Stephen Breyer, if you've watched his interviews throughout the years, he's one of these guys that he talks about. In one interview I was listening to him where he talked about the Japanese internment camps. He said the court allowed that was legal. And he said, and he goes on from there, meaning that, it was a national emergency. So they usurped the Constitution and they focused on the national emergency. Well, that's when the CIA comes in. You mentioned Google just recently. Google is the CIA. So when they're getting involved in elections, and if you paid attention to last week's show, I was doing a show about Eye Patch McCain, Dan Crenshaw.
Oh, yeah. Rob, I wanted to talk to you about that so badly. I saw your tweet about Dan Crenshaw, and I thought it was brilliant.
Well, Dan Crenshaw is one of the guys that I've been talking about for a long time, and it's one of the reasons I always question Donald Trump. He was traveling with Donald Trump post the vote on November 3rd of last year and between January 6th. And I thought, why is Dan Crenshaw traveling with Donald Trump? Because I saw him at a speech, a rally in Valdosta, Georgia, and he gets off the plane, and Donald Trump is with Dan Crenshaw and Ronna McDaniel. Both of two people are, they're protecting the crown. These are people that are involved in the system to give you the best. The guy that describes it the best is this Dr. Shiva out of Boston. And he says, if you just take a circle, and he goes, and you got to remember, he goes, in order to get over on the American people, every point of that circle has to have your point of view, because that's what you root for. He goes, if you step outside the circle, you realize they're all making you fight, so they control what's inside the circle. And here's a perfect example of it. Dan Crenshaw, his election was in question just recently. He gets out and says, we don't want to have TikTok. We got to ban it because we don't want the Chinese government manipulating the minds of Americans. And then the question from the guy coming from Zero Hedge was, isn't the intelligence agencies here in the United States influencing the minds of the American people? And he says, no. Do you have any information? And as soon as the guy starts to talk, Dan Crenshaw cuts him off. Perfect example. These people, whether it be in the legislative branch, whether it be in the executive branch or the judicial branch, they all are protecting a system that is obviously corrupt. I mean, how could you not see how corrupt it is now? We got wars all over the world, inflation through the roof, boys playing girls sports, and we're still trying to determine which politician is going to come save the day. I get very frustrated, as you guys know. I think it's either us, we save the day because we recognize it and we band together. If we continue this fight over Biden and Trump, and this becomes the way we conduct our business as a society, we're just going to spin our wheels like a hamster wheel. That's what's going to happen. And I don't know, it's getting late in the game, if you ask me. There's some crazy things on the horizon. I've been doing more study than I've ever done, even when I was in college, trying to figure this stuff out. And it does not paint a pretty picture.
So, Rob, I do want to go back to that Dan Crenshaw tweet, because I just thought it was so interesting, the video that you attached to it, as you just explained. I was a huge Dan Crenshaw advocate whenever he first got into Congress. I thought the world of him. I thought he was great, Rob. And so to see this not fall from grace, but maybe fall from principle, has been a little bit disappointing for me. How does that happen to politicians, especially the ones that we think are going to be these rising stars within the party? And then, as you highlighted in your tweet, Dan Crenshaw seems to be doing some deals that we're not familiar with. How does that happen to someone?
It's one of two things. I've come down to, at least from my opinion, I think it's one of two things. They get there, and the money and the power and the prestige gets a hold of them, because he's heavily funded by AIPAC, which is the Israeli lobby. And that might be why he wants to get rid of TikTok. TikTok, if you look at the data behind it, is very heavily weighted toward pro-Palestine images on TikTok, and he wants to stop that. So it could be just something as simple as he sees the world through this lens, so he's going to He's going to move his votes in that direction to protect Israel, and AIPAC is giving him money, but it also fits his lens, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing. He's taking money from groups that he believes in the first place. The reason I don't think that's true is because of the commentary after that, where he says the United States intelligence agencies, they're not manipulating the minds, when everybody knows that they were squashing free speech during the 2020 elections on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of it. They were holding back information. And as the reporter in that particular piece we're talking about that was out on X, he says, well, didn't 51 intelligence officers say that Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation? And then he gets in his vehicle and down the road he goes. He doesn't have to answer the question. These are questions that are obvious for everybody to understand and recognize what's happening, but for some reason it skips the consciousness of the American people, and I don't understand why. I'm trying to figure it out. I need a psychiatrist on my show to figure it out, but it does seem like it's kind of obvious.
So I want to ask you this question, because I know you talk about this a lot, and we've talked about this a lot, and just to let you know, a little context, you're talking to a person who has voted third party my entire life.
Every chance you get.
Exactly.
Right.
And have taken all kinds of crap for it, because, as I've often said, the only thing I trust less than a Republican is a Democrat.
Right.
And the whole uniparty thing, and I understand that completely. However, when do you get to the line of, here's what I know, Joe Biden is the worst thing that could possibly happen to this country. So while I am fully, and Katie and I have done it many times, have pointed out all of our issues with Donald Trump and things like that, where do you personally, Rob, make the decision to, I've still got to cast my vote. Am I voting for Donald Trump or whoever it may be because I know that his opponent is probably the worst thing that could happen to the country? Or do you look for that third party candidate, or do you abstain? Like, how do you personally rectify the situation, knowing that that they are, at the end of the day, it's probably a uniparty and they're all working together, but I got to do something with my vote? How do you get to that decision?
Well, I look at it from a little bit different lens than most people. I use my show to try to get people to see it through a little bit different lens. 281 electoral votes will be decided in states with no ID at all, or no picture ID. The elections are being manipulated, so it doesn't really matter who you vote for unless it's within your state. The only thing you can control is what's in your state. It's the reason I'm so tough on Jay Ashcroft. I don't understand why we have electronic voting machines when either the Democrats, if you're a politician and you're trying to do what's best for your constituents, and you know that neither Democrat or Republican, and you're a statewide official, Democrat or Republican, have faith in electronic voting machines, then the number one thing you do is you get rid of the voting machines. He didn't do that. And now he's going to be running for governor. For me, as just somebody who wants to vote in this election, I'd like to know that the votes, whether it be because I think it's Democrats and Republicans cheat. In fact, to be honest with you, I know it, but it's hard to explain it to people. But there's just no way that you would have an election system that is so open for fraud, it boggles the mind, and we keep moving forward with it, and the people in power don't seem to care about the election system. So what I try to get people to recognize is the only way to change the system so that your vote actually does matter is to work it through the state level and put so much pressure on the people that make the decisions. That's the Secretary of State in Missouri, it's the Attorney General's office, and it's the governor. You have to put so much pressure that they have to be more fearful of the citizens than they are of the donors that are controlling the day. And if you don't do that, then they'll rig and they'll manipulate elections forever, whether it be Democrat or Republican, because they both move the ball in the same direction. If you look at Donald Trump's administration, and this is not, I don't like to get Donald Trump supporters all upset with me because I get where they're coming from. I was about as big a Donald Trump supporter as you can be.
Mm-hmm.
But he printed $8 trillion. Everybody goes, oh, it was so much better when Donald Trump was the president. Well, it wasn't better for me. He shut down my business that I worked in for 30 years and absolutely destroyed my life, and then acted like he did a great thing. He's still telling people that the warp speed was a great deal and that the shots are good and this and that and the other, which defies all logic. There's no Donald Trump supporters that even believe it. So why does he continue to say it? Why is he supporting a guy like Mike Rogers out of Michigan, who's an FBI guy? Why is he supporting Bill Barr? Why Lindsey Graham? Why Ronna McDaniel? I could go on and on and on. If you're going to hire the people that you're telling us that you are going to drain the swamp, you're hiring the swamp and putting them in positions of serious power, and everybody around them makes excuses for him like it's not happening.
But
I
if you
think
ever
it defies logic.
If you ever needed an example of if you ever needed proof of the uniparty, it's Lindsey Graham. Because he's Donald Trump's buddy.
Trump is still supporting him.
He's Donald Trump's buddy, and he's
him.
Joe Biden's. Joe Biden's yucking it up with him with Lindsey Graham at the State of the Union because they're old buddies, and Donald Trump is still on his side. Like if
check this out, Tony. Check this out.
That's a perfect example. If you ever needed one, there's your proof.
But let me give you one more,
please.
Because if you look at the really powerful political people in this country, 3 of them come from South Carolina. You got Tim Scott, Lindsey Graham, and Nikki Haley.
Mm-hmm.
Why would South Carolina, which I love the state, by the way, I used to go down there and play golf all the time, but why would that particular state have so much political power in the United States? It's because of Boeing. So these people protect Boeing. That's it. That's why they're there. There's no other reason in the world that Tim Scott, who can barely carry a sentence, Lindsey Graham, who has no appeal whatsoever, and Nikki Haley, who was ambassador to the UN and is fighting the most popular guy in the Republican Party. The only reason they have any political clout whatsoever is money. They're being backed by the military-industrial complex and Boeing.
So I would love to continue this conversation. I only got a couple minutes left here with Rob Carter, but I would love to continue this conversation, and I know that you do on your show every night, 8 to 10. So I highly recommend folks that haven't checked it out to make sure to be tuning in tonight and every night here at News Talk STL 8 to 10 to the Rob Carter Show. But okay, so what do people do? What is your suggestion? Do they look for that third party candidate? Do they vote third party to try to shake things up? I've said my whole life that we don't fit into 2 even nice columns. That the fact that there's not more choice is ridiculous. Do you vote? Do you look for a third party candidate, or do you try to clean up these parties, these existing parties from the inside out?
I think that both, really. I would vote for a third party if these were the 2 parties I had to deal with at this moment. You know, the Republican Party in and of itself isn't a bad thing. It's just the people running the Republican Party at this moment in time. Same with the Democrats. In and of itself, they're not, it's just a group of people. So it's really who is running the show for the Democrats that matters.
It's really the people.
In this instance, I don't see anybody that I would be interested at all, including Donald Trump. That's just me. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I like at least he's explaining to people what's going on in the world with the CIA and the intelligence agencies and how the pharmaceutical companies and the military industrial complex have got he calls it regulatory capture. It's where the regulatory agencies and the politicians have become one and the businesses have become one. So it's a form of fascism. It's like Purdue Pharma, right? They make $14 billion off of synthetic heroin, and then they pay a $2 billion fine. They're basically paying it to themselves because they're one and the same. They really don't pay a fine.
Right.
It's just it's one entity. It's just that we have the appearance that they lost $2 billion in fines for selling synthetic heroin to 17-year-olds.
Listen, you don't got to tell me.
Yes, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., if I had to vote today, that'd be who I'd go with.
How much it's personally affected me as being somebody who is an addict, who has dealt with an opioid addiction, that it was the same company that was giving that I was getting the opioids from is the same company that gives me the medicine that helps me get off the opioid addiction.
You went through this, Tony?
Oh yeah, I've been very public about it. It's been over 10 years now since I got clean. But yeah, I due to a back injury, and I'm certainly not innocent. There was some definitely questionable doctor decisions made, but at the same time, I was indulging more than I should have. And yeah. If you ever need somebody if you ever want to get into the addiction issue with somebody who's been through it, I'm happy to talk about it anytime. I've talked
I may
about
take
it
you
in
up
here.
on that.
Yeah, anytime. I'm happy to share my story because I think it helps.
Absolutely, it's a big
that.
deal to me. I lost 3 family members because of it, Tony.
That's wow!
Really that's why I'm on the radio, to be honest with you, in their memory.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
wow.
I'll have that conversation with you anytime. But that point that I just proved and you just made that it's the same companies that get you hooked and then try to unhook you with something else. Exactly. Yeah. They're the ones that are making all the money. So you can punish them on one side, but when they're the ones making all the money off the cure, or it's not even the cure, you always cure the symptoms, not the disease. That's right. Because there's more money in it that way. So, yeah, great stuff as always. And again, Rob Carter Show every night, 8 to 10, right here on News Talk STL. Rob, as always, great conversation. Really appreciate your time this afternoon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
and have a
Tony.
great show
Thanks,
tonight.
Katie.
Yep.
Thanks, Rob.
Good stuff there.
That would be great if you were able to go on his show and talk about that, Tony. Because you
talk
have
about it anytime.
You have a really interesting
anytime
story.
with anybody. So, yeah. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, there's a lot of questions that should be answered by Big Pharma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know what? The border issue ties into this same issue.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of fingers running throughout many
Joe
political
Biden's
issues.
fingers in little girls' hair. That's what's happening
That
right
is
now.
what the opioid
That's
crisis
what the opioid crisis
It's like Joe Biden's fingers through little girls' hair. That is exactly right. We touched on this last week a little bit, but there's more. Canadian lunacy when it comes to gun rights and gun laws. And listen, it's in Canada. It can be here because there are people that are pushing for these same ridiculous mandates in the United States as these stories that I have from Canada. So I want to get into those. And also, if we have time, also the crackdown on the self-checkout.
Oh,
it is
yeah.
going away.
Oh, man. I have a story about this, too.
See? Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Next on Colombo and Katie.
You're listening to Colombo and Katie. Follow us on Getter at News Talk STL.
The Democrat Party, you're going to have to go back toward the center.
News, analysis, and opinion.
I've never called a talk show before, but this just irked me.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
So I'm still absolutely loving my new used Colorado, new to me, from Weber Chevrolet. And just once again, blown away by the service, by the help that you receive when you are working with Weber Chevrolet. Weber Chevrolet, 3 locations around town to serve you. Creve Coeur in Missouri, Granite City, and Columbia in Illinois. 3 Weber Chevrolet dealerships. Weber Chevrolet has been serving the St. Louis area for over 120 years, which pretty much says it all. You don't really need to make a case for why a company is doing something right by their customers when they have been around for over 120 years in the same community. Of course, they're going to give you the best deal on a new or used vehicle. They're going to give you the best deal on your trade-in. But for me, as I always say, it's the service departments. It's the way that they take care of you and that vehicle for the entire time that you own it that sets Weber Chevrolet apart from the rest. So if you are looking for a new vehicle, check out what's happening at all 3 Weber dealerships by going to WeberChevrolet.com.
Sometimes you want to do something extra special for someone. Vincent's Jewelers can help you. Maybe you want to do something for yourself. Mark a date, something you accomplished. It doesn't have to be anything really expensive, but it has to mean something now and for the future. Vincent's locally owned just ask for the chance to work with you, as they have with me. On Olive, just east of 270. Every day, new specials at vincentsjewelers.com or Vincent's Facebook.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
I'm still shaking my head over the ruling from last week. You know, the ruling where the judge decided Fani Willis can continue to stay on the case prosecuting Donald Trump. The judge criticized her, said that she showed a tremendous lapse of judgment at various times, but you can't really prosecute being stupid. And then, of course, even the sexual relationship she had with her special prosecutor. Again, unprofessional, but same thing. You can't prosecute being stupid. Those are my words, not the judge's, but it's the same effect. And then we get down to the very fact that in the end, one of the two could stay. If she went, the whole case goes dead. So the prosecutor's boyfriend had to go. Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus, said she had perjured herself, and so did he. We all know there was an actual conflict of interest here, but the judge didn't have the guts to say it. And the reason why? Well, the judge has to live in Fulton County, Georgia, where she is prosecutor.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield has a very special deal. You do not want to miss this. A bottle of Angel's Envy engraved with your name Or maybe get several with your company name. What a great gift for special clients. So you can get one or several. Check the Lit Cigar Lounge STL Facebook for full details. Or just visit Lit in Chesterfield. In fact, I'll probably see you at Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. Lit Cigar Lounge.
1949, the last time a Republican held the top post in St. Louis City. A gallon of milk was 84 cents, and streetcars ran down Grand Avenue. The city was booming. Unfortunately, St. Louis city streets are no longer the epicenter of family and business life. In the 80 years of Democrat control, our city has been on a steady decline. St. Louis City Republicans believe it is our duty to provide a different path forward. Learn more at stlouisrepublicans.com.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican Pat Curtis, Farber Treasurer.
This is moving season for many homeowners and businesses. Contact my sponsor, McGuire Moving and Storage. McGuire will come to you, give you a free, honest appraisal. McGuire, fully licensed, insured, local or long distance, with climate-controlled storage. McGuire Moving and Storage has the Larry Connors USA seal of approval. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuireMoving.com.
Hey, St. Louis, my name is Rob Carter. If you are sick and tired of the corporate news bubble, if you like unedited information free from corporate money, if you want straight talk with no script, join me weeknights from 8 to 10 p.m. on The Rob Carter Show.
Live and local, weeknights at 8 on News Talk STL.
Could you whisper in my ear the things you want to feel? I'll give you anything to feel it coming. Do you wake up on your own? I wonder where you are.
Okay, so now I kind of want to talk about the the self-checkout going away. As much as I am blown away by these Second Amendment laws in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
So, real quick, we talked a little bit about this last week with Aaron Tarlow. Last week, the Toronto Police Department recommended, because vehicle thefts are so rampant right now in Toronto, that citizens leave their cars unlocked and their front doors to their house unlocked.
Horrible.
And put the keys to their car near the front door so that if somebody is coming to steal your car, there won't be any confrontation. They won't have to, you going to sneeze or not? Do it or don't. Lady.
I'm stuck on a sneeze.
What are we doing?
I'm stuck on a sneeze. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Katie's face is, you're frozen in sneeze.
Okay,
Do
I'm back.
it.
I'm back. I'm
Get
thinking
out
of
of there.
zebras.
What?
I'm thinking of zebras.
What does that mean?
Because whenever you think
No,
of,
I don't.
When you think of something else, then it takes your mind off of the sneeze.
Doesn't matter what it is?
I don't know. This was a big middle school thing. Like a big...
But zebras specifically.
In my middle school, all the kids were like, think of zebras, and then you won't sneeze. And so that's always been the thing that I'm like, okay, think of zebras if I don't want to sneeze again. But I feel it.
And you think that zebras was just picked out of the blue?
Yes.
Or is there like something about zebras? Like
No. I
the
think
black
it
and white
was-
pattern makes your brain reprogram and not sneeze.
I think it was a 12-year-old saying, like, think of zebras. And then
So it
it
could have
was-
been anything.
Now it's forever ingrained into my brain.
Think of
Okay.
doorknobs.
It could be that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here.
I'm not. Toronto Police Department says to leave your front door unlocked and leave your keys by the front door because all the thief wants is your car.
That's it.
So don't make it where you're going to be in a confrontation with them. Don't make it to where they're going to have to smash your door down or damage your home or vehicle in order to steal your car. Just make it easier on them. That is exactly what the constable of the Toronto Police Department said at a town hall, and then they put out in a memo.
That's insane.
Just surrender, and that'll make things better. We've seen that here. We've seen that here in St. Louis, where not leave your doors unlocked, but when there was a rash of cars getting broken into, not cars getting stolen necessarily, although that's a problem too, just cars getting broken into in the city, and people going through glove boxes and stealing the stereo or cleaning out the glove box looking for money or whatever. Police, the St. Louis Police Department said if you park in the streets, or if you live in the city or you work in the city and you park in the street, just leave your car unlocked. Because then, when they want to steal from you, they don't have to smash your window.
Just open the door.
And at least you're not dealing with, like, you're going to get robbed anyway. So, at least don't make them smash your window to rob. Like,
That's horrible.
Not, hey, let's stop the crime. Let's make it easier. Which is so backwards.
It's so backwards.
And so not going to solve the problem. If you just keep making it easier and easier for criminals, they're just going to want to commit more and more crimes. It's not going to stop. It's not a way to combat crime or reduce it.
This is the top down, though. This is from the top down how we're seeing people degrade police officers, and then they're not, then it's less police officers on duty, then less people being able to get to the crime, and then we get to a point where now the criminal can run amok.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the magnitude that we once had in these police forces because everybody has beaten them down.
Yeah. It was either Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. It was one of the cities in Pennsylvania last week, maybe a couple weeks ago we were doing the story, where they said that the 911 dispatchers aren't going to send cops. Unless there's like a life-threatening. They said they weren't going to send for robbery.
Robberies, break-ins to homes.
Home break-ins and robberies. You're going to have to well, are they breaking in and stealing your stuff and leaving? Because if so, you don't need anybody. If they have a gun and they're threatening your life, then maybe we'll send somebody.
Yeah.
But if they're just robbing you, we're not going to send anybody. That's here. That's in the United States.
Yep.
One more. So the leave your doors unlocked, that was Toronto. In Quebec, Canada, police officials have advised residents if they're the victims of porch piracy, if you catch somebody stealing on your Ring camera or another security camera device, don't publicly post that because you're violating the privacy rights of the people that are stealing from you.
They're on my property. Everything is you're on my property.
They say
stealing.
This is what Lieutenant Benoit Richard of the Quebec Police Department says. If you have proof that somebody might have stolen something, you have video of them taking it off your porch. If you have some proof that somebody might have stolen something, call the police and give that evidence to the police. Let us do the investigation. Do not put that on social media and make it public. That could be a violation of private rights. For the criminal.
Doesn't that go out the window once you do something on someone else's private property,
It certainly should. But this is the lunacy. This is the left lunacy when it comes to crime and the Second Amendment and all of the issues that are tied into that.
That is just
Be nice
insane.
to criminals.
This is why.
This is why it's so bad.
It is terrible. And if you listen to our interview with Aaron Tarlow last week, you understand the importance of being your own first responder.
Yeah, right.
And you don't have to carry, but have something in your home that if trouble is happening and it's the middle of the night, you can defend yourself, you can defend your family, because it can be happening in Canada. It could be happening in downtown St. Louis, but who knows what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
In your county, in your city.
Yeah.
This
is why your Second Amendment rights are so important, and they should be protected at all costs.
Yes,
because this is what you're up against.
I'm sharing your photo.
When it comes to
I'm doing it.
to the people that are in charge in these liberal cities, these these progressive leaders that want you to leave your car unlocked.
So backwards.
And they somehow twist it into this is a way to combat crime.
Oh, and it's your fault.
This is You're the problem. You're the problem. The property owner, the victim of the crime. You're the problem because you want to lock your doors and you want to stop them from stealing and you want to defend your property. What's wrong with you?
I am if there's a porch pirate, I'm sharing your photo because I want my neighbors to see and keep lookout. Because we got to take care of each other, people. We got to take care of each other.
And don't think that this couldn't happen. That specific story, as I said, is in Quebec, Canada. Don't act like, oh, that's in Canada. That would never happen here.
No.
We protected immigrants that beat up cops in Times Square on video.
Yep.
Don't act like that type of craziness couldn't happen here.
No.
Can you imagine being a homeowner that got your packages stolen off your porch and you go to report that crime and the first thing the cop says to you is, "Did you put this on social media? Because I think you might have violated some privacy laws there." And you're the one that's been robbed?
Now you're
Can you imagine being
in the doghouse?
Can you imagine? Put yourself in that position. You've just been robbed. You call the police. You put that on social media because, like you said, you want your neighbors to be aware that this is happening.
Absolutely. I want to protect other people from it.
And then you call the police and say to report a crime, and the first thing that they say to you is, "Did you post this on social media? Because you might be guilty of violating some privacy rights here."
They're the criminal. They don't deserve it.
Incredible.
I thought all of that seriously was out the window. Once you are a criminal,
it is.
It's not that you lose all of your rights, but
you lose all your rights when you're on my property stealing from me, and you're putting me and my family in danger because I don't know who you are or why you're here
doing,
or why you're taking my stuff.
If you might come back. I mean, it just is.
No, you do give up your rights.
You do.
That is nuts. That is nuts. That is.
Don't be going to Canada.
Yeah, well, and don't be letting that happen here.
Yeah.
Because it already is.
Yeah, look
in
at
many
that and
places.
examine it.
We'll talk about the self-checkout lanes tomorrow.
We gotta.
Because they're going away.
We gotta.
Dollar General just pulled all of them in their stores.
Too many people stealing.
No more. Not even for a limited amount of.
Oh.
Like gone.
Oh.
No more self-checkout. Yeah.
Dollar General.
Yeah. We'll talk about that and much more tomorrow. Colombo and Katie back tomorrow at 2 p.m. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast in the meantime. And keep it right here for the O'Reilly Report next. Then the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show at 4. Larry Connors USA at 6. And the Rob Carter Show at 8. Your home for live and local news programming right here. 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Don't you love the life you kill?
If the time has come to sell the house, you know you're empty nesters now.